So thank you very much for this opportunity. It is our great honor, Ambassador, for you to be our first speaker at our new activity, the e-meeting series, the EastMed Edition. Our aim is to promote further the relations between the EastMed countries and Cyprus, and taking into consideration how the pandemic is affecting all of us. We have actually put all our meetings for the moment online. So thank you very much for being here with us today to discuss about the Abraham Accords as part of our EastMed Youth Ambassadors Project. So thank you very much, and there is you.
Thank you very much, Yana, and thank you for inviting me to speak to the Cyprus Youth DiplomaCY Forum. I think the topic that you chose is very relevant for everybody here in Cyprus. Of course, for us in Israel, it's no less than historic, because we are living in historic times when just yesterday we saw a delegation from Abu Dhabi flying, with Etihad Airlines and landing in Ben Gurion Airport. And a few days ago, we had a delegation in Bahrain signing agreements. So it's definitely historic times for us in Israel and in our relationship with the Arab world, and specifically with the region of the Gulf. And I can say that I feel particularly proud because I spent some of my best years in the Gulf trying to promote the relations between Israel and Gulf countries. And already several years back, we understood that there is huge potential. It took a few years, like, we are here talking about diplomacy. Sometimes in diplomacy, you don't see the results immediately. It takes a very long effort. But I'm very happy to see personally also that this effort is bearing fruit and concrete results. I will have a short survey about how we reached to this point, because I think, we want to go a little more deep to the issue. First of all, what we use, we use a term in diplomacy, and it's also true in this case, a paradigm shift. What does it mean, paradigm shift? It exists also in science. I don't know if any of you are amateurs of philosophy of science, but I studied this in university. At some point, people thought that the Earth is flat. And then many research was done, and many philosophers and scientists researched the issue, and they came to the conclusion that the Earth is actually round because of scientific proof. This was a paradigm shift. It wasn't enough that one researcher, one person will say, no, my data shows this. It took quite a lot of people, quite a lot of effort, until we reached a critical mass, and then we changed to a new paradigm, from the Earth is flat to the Earth is round. The same is happening today here in our country, in our relationship with the Gulf countries. This is why when we look at those pictures, it's completely a new scenery that we see out there. I think maybe we can go into the presentation. I made a short presentation, but if we start the presentation, you will see this picture that we chose for the opening. This one, of course, we'll stop here. Cyprus and Israel celebrate, this is a bracket. We celebrate 60 years of diplomatic relations, so it's also a chance to say, to celebrate together with you, and maybe we can say a few words about this towards the end. But the real picture about the paradigm shift is this one. When you see people from in Abu Dhabi airport waving to an Al airplane, with the Israeli flag on the airplane. This is paradigm shift, because it's not only about signing an agreement. It's not only about a small change in rhetoric. It's a complete change of heart. People who just maybe a few months ago were talking, if at all, very little and behind the scenes, now are waving to each other in such an open way, in such a friendly way as this gesture. this is completely a new scenario for us. I would like to explain to you a little bit from an Israeli point of view what it means to us, and maybe Stanis, we can go to the next slide. You know, like in every conflict, like in every problem that we have in life, I can go now and talk about it for at least 2 hours, only about our conflict and how we are trying to solve it, the Israeli-Arab conflict. But I chose 3 moments of time just to make it very easy, very simple. The first moment of time is, which I chose Golda Meir. Last week, I don't know if many of you had a chance, but we offered the chance last weekend to show, to watch online the movie about Golda Meir. I hope some of you had the chance to see it. She was the Israeli prime minister, the first woman prime minister of Israel, but also a very unique lady. And I chose her because if you did have a chance to see that movie, you saw that she was prime minister of Israel in 1973, in a very difficult time for Israel. In 1973, we had the Yom Kippur War. That was a very dangerous point in our history because Israel, you know, Yom Kippur is the holiest day of the Jewish year. It is a day where everybody is going to prayer, to synagogue, fasting. It's really the holiest day of the whole year. And on that day, Arab armies, and especially a very big Arab army from Egypt, but also from Syria, attacked Israel by a surprise attack, while many of the people of my generation were praying in synagogue or fasting. It was really a very hard moment, which was burned into our minds, that on that holy moment, we were attacked by such mighty armies which tried to invade Israel and maybe even destroy it. And Golda Meir was a prime minister of Israel during that time. But if you watch the movie, you see that she did keep her cool, and she managed to amass all of Israel's strengths, also with the support of the United States especially, and also turn the outcome of the war to the fact that the Israeli army actually managed to not only save the borders, but actually even make further advances to enemy territory at that time. And that moment of time in 1973 changed our the first situation that we had at the time with Egypt. And a few years later, again, to be very short, 1977, in the direct aftermath of that war, Anwar al-Sadat, the president of Egypt, came to the Knesset, to the Israeli parliament, and he said the words, "No more war, no more bloodshed." I still remember this as a child, watching the president of Egypt on television saying, "No more war, no more bloodshed." It was kind of a dream come true. And then we had the peace with Egypt signed. But that was a unique peace for quite a while. You know, that was, I'm talking to you about the 1970s. And it took many, many years for other countries to follow. Only in the 90s, in the middle 90s, Jordan followed. And in 1994, we signed a peace agreement with Jordan. And until today, these were the 2 main and the only Arab countries which signed peace treaties with Israel. Unfortunately, after this time, in the 90s, but also in the years 2000, and this I'm coming to the second part of the slide, you see buses exploding. Terrorist organizations, which didn't like the fact that we are working for peace, decided that the best way for them to fight peace is by killing civilians, exploding buses, exploding cafes. And that started a very big wave of terrorism, roughly from the mid-90s until, you know, years 2000 and much later. You know, we remember, for example, horrendous events also, like there was a lynch against some of our soldiers in Ramallah, you know, which was a capital of the Palestinian Authority at the time. It still is. That's where this Palestinian Authority is sitting. and two of our soldiers were killed by a mob of people, you could really see the hatred. And to cause this, to kill people in such a way, to explode buses, you have to have really deep hatred. And this is the most dangerous thing, because even after we signed peace treaties, there were many people who, instead of choosing the path of peace, decided to go on the path of murder, killing, hatred of people. And that lasted for quite a while. I have to say that there was, you would ask me why today it has gone down. I think it is several different things. First of all, the fact that Israel managed to defend itself again, like we managed to defend ourselves well in the war, we managed to defend ourselves and to develop very sophisticated means to counter terrorism, but also because very quickly, these terrorist attacks did not continue only to Israel. It continued, you remember 9/11, of course, the attacks against the Twin Towers in New York and the Pentagon building in Washington. And I was stationed in Paris, and Jews, when I was there, were massacred in a very brutal way by terrorists. I remember an attack on a school in Toulouse where a 5-year-old girl was shot by a terrorist from 2 meters. You have to imagine what goes through a mind of a person who is shooting a 5-year-old girl from 2 meters away. It's terrible hatred. And the world understood that this cannot be tolerated and immediately stood side by side, not only Israelis, but also, and the Americans, but also European countries fighting terrorism and saying that this is unacceptable. And another thing happened through this terrorism is that it destroyed, not only it destroyed many lives, it also destroyed in a way, the Arab societies. And I think that some of the leaders in the Arab world now understand that. If you take, for example, Palestinian Authority, Hamas, which is behind much of this terrorism, which is a Palestinian organization, was recognized as a terrorist organization by the Palestinian Authority, and was trying to destroy by the European Union, and tried to destroy the Palestinian Authority from within, fighting even the Palestinian Authority, and doing terrible things while going at it. And today we have a situation where Hamas controls Gaza in a very brutal way, as a terrorist organization does, and is actually preventing Palestinians who do want to progress in life of having a better future. The same we see in Lebanon with Hezbollah. I'm sure all of you follow events in Lebanon, and those Lebanese who want a better future for their countries, who want to build an economic future, to work for the future, face an organization, a terrorist organization as the Hezbollah, which is preventing this from happening, because its only goal in life is to continue the fight, continue terrorism. So not only Israel, not only the US, not only Europe, but also Arab countries, I think, understand more and more the danger of terrorism. And actually, I was very happy because just before coming into the room, I read the final communique of the summit that is taking place today in Nicosia between Mohamed al-Sisi, the president of Egypt, and President Anastasiades, and the Prime Minister of Greece. And there is a whole paragraph on the fight against terrorism and the dangers of terrorism to other countries of the region. So this shows that really there is a deep understanding that this is a top priority. And this is how I think we are going to beat this phenomena, which unfortunately still exists. We just saw a few days ago in Paris with the horrendous attack on a teacher, murder of a teacher. It still exists, but I hope if we stand side by side, if we work together, we are going to overcome it. But then we come to the third part of this slide. And this is a tweet that I made just a few months back in the beginning of the corona. And it portrays another phenomena, which is also very dangerous. In this case, it is diplomatic warfare against the state of Israel, which continues, unfortunately. And I think some people, Palestinians, but unfortunately not only Palestinians, also some others, who think that the best way to further their cause is to conduct diplomatic warfare against Israel. So this slide shows that the Palestinian Committee in the United Nations compared their fight, their agenda against Israel to the fight, to the combat against the coronavirus. You know, others call Israel a cancer, a coronavirus, you know, calling Israel by names, portraying it like the enemy of humankind. And at the same time, very cynically, that Israel is sending huge amounts of aid to Palestinians to fight COVID-19. So on the one hand, you have a democratic country, which is the only true democracy in the Middle East, helping the Palestinians to confront COVID-19, sending assistance. On the other hand, you have Palestinians and also some of people who think that they are helping them, calling Israel as coronavirus and comparing the fight against Israel to coronavirus. I'm mentioning this fact because this diplomatic warfare, while it is not maybe killing people in the field, it's not a war, it's not a terrorist attack, but this diplomatic warfare is very damaging to peace. Because, you know, you also live your own conflict, and you know that the only way to overcome a conflict is by the end of the day to live side by side. And the only thing that will enable you to live side by side is that you see that the person living alongside you is a human being exactly like you. He might have different interests, he might have different ambitions in life, but he's a human being. He is also concerned with his own life and his own future. Only if you recognize that, you can move towards peace. That's why this kind of rhetoric, comparing Israelis, you know, to all kinds of deadly sicknesses, is horrendous, because it's killing the opportunity for peace. And I have to say that I'm sorry that in that Palestinian committee, Cyprus is still a member. I hope very much that soon Cyprus will leave this committee and will send a clear signal to Palestinians that the only way to move forward towards peace is to stop anti-Israeli rhetoric, to start this kind of anti-Israeli incitement, and to sit side by side and discuss about our future and how we can solve the problems. So this is the slide, you know, the paradigm before the paradigm shift. We had the wars, we had terrorism, we have diplomatic warfare, and that was a war until maybe April, May this year. And now, maybe by now you understand we're moving to the new world, you know. I want to take you through this journey that we feel as Israelis. We move from that world to from that world of the world is flat to the world that the world is round, to the way it should be, and is going to take us to a much better future. You see, of course, I put my picture here with the United Arab Emirates ambassador, and it was a very friendly meeting, I have to tell you, a very warm meeting. That really much even warmer than I expected to begin with. Then we have the signing of the agreements on the bottom photo just this week in Bahrain, with the United States in the background, the Israeli head of the National Security Council sitting with the Foreign Minister of Bahrain signing the agreement on normalization of relations. And on the top, most importantly, our Foreign Minister Gabi Ashkenazi standing there with Heiko Maas, the German Foreign Minister, and Mohammed bin Zayed, the Foreign Minister of UAE, of United Arab Emirates, in the Holocaust Monument in Berlin. The Holocaust Monument is the monument that Germany built in the middle of Berlin to recall the horrendous murder of 6 million Jews in the Holocaust. And the fact that the German Foreign Minister stands, and on one side he has the Israeli Foreign Minister, on the other side the Foreign Minister of the United Arab Emirates, in this place is so symbolic to Israelis, you know, that this is really in itself a paradigm shift. We are getting rid of the future, of the hatred that brought the most heinous crimes against the Jewish people, and we're moving toward the future of peace and reconciliation. So now we can move to the concrete situation. And I have to tell you that, of course, you know, there is the agreement. You see the signing of the agreement in Washington, our prime minister. Then you have Donald Trump and the two foreign ministers of Bahrain and UAE signing the agreements of normalization, of renewing of relations. But I also put the map of the region. Why did I combine the two? Because the signing of the agreements is maybe, you know, a diplomatic move. Again, we're talking here in the diplomatic forum. It's a diplomatic move. When you sign an agreement, you, on the one hand, you open embassies, and we will, I believe, soon open embassies. You start diplomatic meetings, and we saw the photographs of the diplomatic meetings. You also normalize, you know, very important economic issues like the airplanes which landed, which need, you know, we need aviation contacts. Already today, airplanes can take off from Abu Dhabi, land directly in Israel. This needs, of course, economic agreements, also agreements to enable people to travel without visa freely, agreements which are needed by businessmen to conduct their business, to be able to perform business transactions. But also, very importantly, and I think, you know, especially talking to a forum of youth diplomacy, beyond the diplomatic and the economic issues, there is also the image issue, the education issue. Why I show you all these pictures? It is because we have to educate also the people. You know, perceptions, especially among young people, do not change overnight. You know that very well, that people will live with what they were learning in school, what their parents taught them. And sometimes it's very difficult to convince even your friend to change perceptions. That's why we do need this, to show the pictures, to explain, like we're doing now today, to write articles about it. And I invite you to do the same in your circles, to explain that this is really the most important thing that is happening today in our region, that people who just, you remember 5 minutes ago, I showed you slides of what was happening in our region, are actually today signing agreements and working side by side. And why is it so important that we do all this? Is because on the other side, we have the map of the region. And you know it very well. This is probably one of the most unstable and troublesome regions of the world. We would like to think that we will move smoothly into a better future, but we have to recognize that we are facing also huge challenges. And we never close our eyes to the challenges. You cannot close your eyes to the threats, to the challenges. You have to also accept that they are there and to think of ways to overcome them. So when, you know, if we zoom out a little bit from what I was talking until now, and we look at that map of the region, we have to recognize that these challenges are there, and they're still there and still very dangerous. On the one side of that map, we have, you know, just beyond Iraq there, it's a little, your pictures are on that screen, so I cannot see it, but Iran is there behind. We have Iran. And when we speak about Iran, we don't speak about the Iranian people. We speak about the regime which is running Iran today, the Ayatollahs which run the regime. We are also talking about the Revolutionary Guard, which is supporting the regime, and it's also spreading throughout the region. Weapons, very dangerous weapons, developing nuclear weapons, but at the same time delivering missiles. If we take the Revolutionary Guard and their proxies in the region, if you take Yemen, you have the Houthis, you have in Iraq, you have in Syria, you have in Lebanon, the Hezbollah. I've mentioned them. They are an Iranian proxy. They receive missiles, armaments, and money from Iran to continue their deadly terrorism. So Iran is there with its regime, with its Revolutionary Guard, with its proxies in the region, and is opposing everything that I just said right now. They made statements against, you know, everything that I've said from the beginning of this talk until now, but they're also acting in the field to continue their support of terrorism and of building up armaments confront, you know, and it's not only against Israel. You remember that a few months back, missiles were shot at Saudi Arabia by Iranian proxies, and these were Iranian missiles. You remember that missiles were shot at the Americans in Iraq, and hundreds were killed, again, Iranian missiles. And if you look at the Hezbollah and the buildup that they are building in number of missiles and in their deadly capacity, this is a very frightening situation for all of us. You know, also Cyprus, if you look at the map, and Lebanon and Israel, we are very, very close to that region. So this is a huge danger for all of us, and we have to recognize it. Of course, looking at Turkey in the north, you know, I don't have to tell you, you are from Cyprus, but also Turkey is supporting Hamas and continuing its very, let's say, aggressive line and rhetoric. So this is another very big danger. And while we have an opportunity, and I described at length the opportunities, the huge opportunities that we have to recognize that we have these threats, and we have to think how we better coordinate, how we better cooperate to turn these threats into opportunities. We don't believe that it is a hopeless cause. We do believe that if we continue our way, we will be able to transform the region and to make it a better place for everyone. But if we have to be realistic at this point of time, I mean, again, I'm talking not to a general public, but to a public which is interested in diplomacy. If we have to, you know, talk about this point of time, you could say that today we are building something, but we have also huge threats, huge challenges which are still out there, and we have to see them. What we want to do is to continue building our part of the future of this region. And our part, I mean, working, as I said, Israel, Egypt, Jordan, Gulf countries like UAE, like Bahrain, and I hope very much that soon other Arab countries, other Gulf countries will join us, but also working with Cyprus, with Greece, to extend this cooperation into the Eastern Mediterranean. If we create this axis of cooperation, and of course we will need also support by the United States. We are getting a lot of support. You see these agreements are being signed in Washington, but also here in Cyprus, you know, we have support, American support for the trilateral between Israel, Cyprus, and Greece. They do support this trilateral of democratic countries working on for security, for energy projects, for economic prosperity, and we will need other support. So we will be able, through this synergy, to really transform the region and to leave behind us a region for you are the next generation. I would say we will be able, my generation, to leave behind to your generation a region which is really moving in the direction that we want, a much more stable and a much more secure region, which also offers economic opportunities to young people. So I want to just to talk about these synergies, you know, because if we not leave it up in the open, on the left side you have the fight against Corona. All of our countries, whether you're talking about UAE or Israel or Egypt or Cyprus or Greece, we are all facing this challenge of the Corona, and there is a lot of cooperation. Medical, you know, teams are consulting, supply of pharmaceuticals, but we should do more in the fight against Corona, and I think there are certainly opportunities. Then, you know, on the right side of the dove, you would see the bulb. Of course, that symbolizes innovation. You know how important it is for the work of this embassy, of the Embassy of Israel in Nicosia, the effort to create synergies on innovation. We just finished in recent years several rounds of training together for Cypriots, Greeks in Israel on innovation, on entrepreneurship. Pretty soon we're going to start also training here in Cyprus on startups and innovation, and it will be online probably again because of the Corona. We have shipping, we have aviation. Aviation, I want to stop here for 1 second because, and it is connected to the Corona. through the corona, we run into a very big difficulty, which is to travel. But we do believe that after 6 months of confronting the disease, we can employ technology, which means testing at the airports, sterilization systems to sterilize airplanes, airports, to gradually reopen airlinks. We have to go in that direction. We cannot, it's not, I would say, healthy, to use a term. It's not healthy to have corona, definitely, but it's also not healthy to delink the aviation link completely. We do need to start gradually to open up. There are some flights, but we need to gradually gain confidence, employ technology to our advantage, and we believe that we have to live with the corona for quite a while, unfortunately. So aviation is very important. We have to restart aviation. And I told you in the beginning about the importance of this flight from Abu Dhabi to Israel. You know, aviation is also the connection between our countries. We do have to pay special attention to it and ensure that it reopens in a very safe and healthy way, definitely. And then we have, of course, water. All of our region, you know, is facing climate change, and there is a very good initiative by the President of Cyprus that we embrace completely to fight climate change, to save our environment in this region. There, if you want in the questions and answers, we can go into that if anybody wants to hear more. But certainly we see great opportunities for synergies between Israel, Cyprus, United Arab Emirates, Egypt, on solar technology, on wind technology, on storage, on electricity efficiency, on water desalination, on many other technologies which will be able to safeguard our environment and create the necessary amounts of water which are needed in our region. And of course, energy. Energy is a huge opportunity for us. It's a huge opportunity. That's why also I chose to end with it. It's a huge opportunity because we have at our disposal very big amounts of natural gas, but also we have huge amounts of sunshine. We should use sunshine to create energy. Natural gas is much cleaner also than previous methods to create electricity. And only by working together, you know, in Northern Europe, they have kind of a market of green energy. I understand that if Finland creates more energy by green technologies, they can sell it to Sweden and backwards. We should do the same. We should have the same grids in the region that we will be able to put together, create green energy, but also develop our huge resources of natural gas to export it within the region because it is cleaner than what many of the countries are using today, but also to export to Europe and to other markets. I'm sure that you're familiar with the EastMed pipeline, with the electrical cable. All of these things are widely reported in the press and you can read about them. They are huge opportunities for us economically, but also very much to bring us together as countries around. And the biggest proof that it is bringing us together is just 3 weeks ago, we inaugurated the first regional organization. You know, it's not only now talking, and we have an organization, it's called the East Mediterranean Gas Forum. It is sitting in Cairo, in Egypt. And in that organization, we have Greece, we have Israel, we have Cyprus, we have Egypt, of course, Jordan, Palestinians, also Italians, and other Europeans are as observers. For us, it's much beyond energy, it's peace. You know, we sit in an organization and we talk about cooperation. I say it every time, it shouldn't stay only for natural gas. It should be really, we should create this regional organization to deal with many other issues. And only this way we will be able to really strengthen the synergy that I was talking about, stretching from the Gulf to Jordan, to Egypt, to the Palestinians, to Israel, to Cyprus and Greece, and create this axis that is going to work together for a much better future for our region. So I will stop here because I was too long, and we'll open it for questions and answers, I think.
So thank you very much, Ambassador, for this very insightful presentation. And just to let the participants know that they can write in the comments if they want to have the floor for a question for Ambassador Revel, and then I will recognize you. So until I give some time to my colleagues to state if they want to speak. Ambassador, if I can comment that, thank you also very much for this presentation, that it's also our aim to involve young people in this process to create a culture of peace, security, and stability in the region. So we're very happy and very honored that you give us this opportunity, and that the Embassy of Israel was very open to cooperate with us in this project. And we do hope that very soon we'll have a better situation in relation to the coronavirus, so that we can have an exchange, youth exchange, maybe our first youth exchange between young people of Israel and Cyprus. Until then, we will have to work online, but still it's an option nowadays. And I guess we are very lucky. Until my colleagues write if they want to take the floor, I would like to ask you, Ambassador, about the direct impact that Cyprus can have from the Abraham Accords, if you would like to comment on this. I was recently reading an article stating that now, because of the aviation, because of the open airs and the FIR, because I think the planes from United Arab Emirates can come to Israel, that means that also the Cyprus FIR, Nikos FIR will be benefited, and there are going to be some incomes in Cyprus economy because of this positive move. So are there any, I don't know if it's true or not, it was an article, so I'm not quite sure how I can cross-check if this is the reality. I just wanted to ask you if there are other impacts, positive impacts from Cyprus coming from the Abraham Accords. Of course, peace and stability in the region is the most important, but maybe there are some other aspects that Cyprus can benefit.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, I think the whole presentation was about how by coming together and the Abraham Accords and the agreements with UAE and Bahrain stretch our cooperation. You know, that we have this very deep cooperation in the Eastern Mediterranean that is through the trilateral process mainly. We had already quite a few summits of the trilateral and meeting at ministerial level. So now we have also the EMGF with Egypt and Jordan and Palestine. And this is another extension also of this views into the Gulf, and definitely this is the most important thing. Now, what you're referring to is, let's say, how can we now create the concrete, you know, we diplomats also sometimes should think in more concrete terms. I do agree with you, not only in general terms. So what you mentioned is certainly a concrete benefit, but I can think of easily of several others. And I don't think we have the monopoly of thinking. You can probably also suggest also in your own fields, you know, just now looking at you on the screen, I could think of immediately, you could have, you know, use diplomacy organization for all the countries together to come together to a yearly conference, hopefully not only online, but also physically. And that would be a huge contribution. You can host it in Cyprus for the first time and have EastMed up to the Gulf youth movement of diplomacy, how to further, and that would be extremely important. So, this is, I mean, just to say that the opportunities are endless, it depends on whoever is willing to think, you know, and I think you have to take the opportunity, to seize this opportunity of paradigm shift, you know, the same way that scientists seize when there is a new paradigm to immediately start new areas of research, to open companies that are based on this new technology. The same way is here. We have a paradigm shift. Each one should look at how he can personally improve his own life and his own endeavors through this. So saying that, I do see also from my point of view and from our point of view here at the embassy, several things that we can do quite immediately. One thing which I've referred to quite at length during the presentation already is green technology. The United Arab Emirates is very advanced, and actually there is in Abu Dhabi an organization called IRENA, which is an organization for the environment and for new technologies, energy technologies. And we have already synergies with that organization. At the same time, we have the initiative of the President of Cyprus, together also with the Cyprus Institute, to create research groups on which are going to present projects on climate change and safeguarding the environment. This is also being financed by the European Union. So there are like quite big opportunities in terms of getting financing. If any of you are researching in these fields, or if you know people, if groups of researchers are coming together, and they can, I think, approach the Cyprus Institute and quite quickly also get, if it's a good idea, of course, support, financing for projects. So on green technology, definitely, because of the great interest in the Gulf, and because of the initiative of the Cyprus president, and because of the support of the European Union also by financing, I think there is a great opportunity. And also we have to recognize that both in Cyprus, in Israel, in Abu Dhabi, in Cairo, we have more or less the same conditions. We have a lot of sunlight, we have the same, not exactly, but we have quite similar weather conditions. And we are all suffering also from the climate change. So definitely this is something immediately that I think is a huge opportunity. There is another opportunity which is, I think, growing in importance, and this is trade. You know, historically, Cyprus was always a gateway to Europe from that region. Even if you read back to the Middle Ages or much before, ships were going from the Middle East through Cyprus to Europe. And certainly today also, Cyprus is very big in shipping. It's a big part of the economy. And I think that if countries from the Gulf are looking for ways to move their goods quickly and safely to Europe, you know, I think the way to go through Israel, from Israel to Cyprus, is certainly a very promising one. Of course, it involves not only ship, but also trains, building ships, and altogether building the connection with Europe. And Cyprus here certainly has a very central place to, so it's aviation that you mentioned, but I believe it's not only in the sky, it's also going to be true in the seas. There are many opportunities. Again, I don't want to monopolize, because I'm sure that if we open the discussion, each one of you can think, and maybe you have better ideas than I do. But whoever I talk to, whether it's the president of the Chamber of Commerce of Cyprus, or the head of the shipping association, or it's the hotel association, all of them think of opportunities. So I think there are definitely a lot of opportunities. And, you know, I think that together with you, we have to see that, because that's the most difficult thing sometimes, not to leave it as an opportunity, but also bring it down from the theoretical level and actually implement. If we implement just 2 of the 3 things that I mentioned now, in the next 2-3 years, it will be a huge change for Cyprus and for Israel.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Our EastMed Youth Ambassador Evgenia has a question, following by Vasily Papasava, my colleague from Cyprus Youth DiplomaCY.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for your insightful presentation, and thank you, Anna, for the floor. My question relates to the initiative of the President of Cyprus on climate change that you have just mentioned. I would therefore like to hear more from you on the cooperation on a bilateral level between Israel and Cyprus on climate change related issues, especially on water management, if there has been a discussion already on this specific matter. And from my knowledge, Israel has had substantial influence on water management projects. I think there recently has been an environmental peace building process through the Eco-Peace Middle East organization. So I was wondering if there has been any specific discussion on water management in the framework of that initiative. Thank you.
Okay, well, you are really, like we say in Hebrew, you are bursting into an open door, because this is something which we put to the priority. I was talking about the infrastructure that we put in place to reinforce the synergy between the Israeli high-tech innovation ecosystem and Cyprus. You know, in the recent few years, especially I think in the last 2 years, Cyprus has really made a huge effort to create its own ecosystem by appointing a deputy minister of research and innovation, but also by reinforcing the Institute of the Chief Scientist. And we identified in that, we signed, of course, an action plan with Cyprus on a chief scientist to chief scientist level. But under this, we identified very few subjects for immediate action. And one of the chief subjects was the issue of green technology. We already organized several visits and also facilitated other meetings. Just to give you one example, we had here the president of the Association of Green Technologies from Israel. He participated in the conference of the Hotel Association, and he presented ways in which, you know, by using technology which exists already on the shelf by some companies in Israel, hotels can save tens of percent, you know, sometimes up to 30% of their electricity consumption. By reducing electricity consumption, it means also reducing emissions. And you imagine the number of hotels which are on the beaches of Cyprus. If each one of them will reduce 30% of its emissions, that will have a huge impact, not only on their future, but also for the future of the region. So this is one example, and the technologies are there. They are also, you mentioned water technologies. Definitely, Israel is a leader in terms of recycling of water. In Israel, we recycle over 90% of the water. In Cyprus, I think it's maybe around 30%. I don't want to be wrong, but I think it's around 30-something%, if I remember correctly. I don't know, Noga, if you remember another, it's okay, 30% is good. Okay. So around 30%. So you can imagine, I mean, if Israel, we recycle, and it's just a matter of technology. You can fly 40 minutes from here, buy this technology. Of course, you have to learn how to use it, how to integrate it, but it's there. It's there, and if you imagine what would be the difference between recycling 30% of the water to recycling 90% in terms of pollution, in terms also of better water management. And we are living in a region where water is scarce. There are also new ways to do desalination. You know, in the past years, desalination was very polluting. Today, more and more technologies are using a combination of solar technology and desalination, so you reduce the emissions coming out of, and many other technologies. Israel is a powerhouse, you know, we are really a powerhouse of technology. Cyprus is very close to us, and today, as I said, Cyprus wants, and I heard it personally from the Deputy Minister of Research and Innovation and from the Chief Scientist, we all heard it, they want to synergize with Israel. So now, I mean, these things are out there. Israelis are willing to come on any of these fields to do demonstrations, to show the products. You can also go there. Okay, now in Corona, it's a little more difficult, but I hope very soon we will also have physical opportunities to visit. Now we can organize for you online sessions with people who, for example, dealing with these technologies. And whoever, if you are in this kind of field, feel free to contact us, you know, and we will give you all the necessary information.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Vasiliki?
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for your presentation. It was very interesting. Let me ask you something regarding my capacity as a Cypriot young girl. How do you believe young people can help strengthen relations in the region? Thank you very much.
Well, young people are the most important ones because you are the future. Now, since I have 3 young people at home, so, you know, I know that these are not easy times. I have to start with that. I know that many young people, I don't talk for everybody, are facing a very difficult situation. I mean, students who used to go to the university every day now have to be content with being online and see their friends online many times. People who are working in the tourism, restoration industry, maybe sometimes lost their job or went on leave. Many other, let's say, things are creating difficulties and maybe an uncertain future. I know that, so I don't want to seem to be, you know, not to regard the reality, it's there. But, you know, this is something that we are proud of in Israel. You know, every Israeli boy goes for at least 3 years to the army, many do more. Every young girl goes to at least 2 years in the army, some do more. So some people ask me, you know, how come? How can they do that? How can they, you know, each one has to go for 3? Yes, each boy has to go for 3 years. So you could say it's a problem, but also we believe in Israel that every challenge is also, you have to turn it into an opportunity. And for example, if you're going into military service, that also gives you a huge opportunity to know how to manage big systems, you know, to interact with others, how to interact with technology, new technology, because armies many times deal with new technologies. So to translate your question, I think that maybe the best way that young people, and again, I don't, you know, I'm not in a position, you should answer this question actually. I feel a little awkward in answering it, but let's say, let me give my perspective on it. If I can give a suggestion, I think you have to look at these challenges, and they are enormous. We have the COVID, we have the global warming, we have economic difficulties, we have many other difficulties in the region. But look, in your own field of work, you know, if you are in the medical field of work, I'm sure there are many opportunities because of COVID also that you can, and I believe that the best way is not to stay closed in your own shell, but to reach out. And since I'm the ambassador of Israel, I would really recommend to you, you know, one of the most frustrating things for me, for Noga, and for the oldest team of this embassy is the fact that we are so close. We are so close, just 40 minutes flights away, so similar in culture and everything. And still, young people don't interact enough with each other. I think that, you know, really, I think that maybe the best way would be for, again, maybe now it's difficult to do it physically, but you can definitely start creating, and we can also give you the information of youth organization in Israel, making the contact with youth organizations, building these contacts, and be ready that when, I hope very much we will be open to renew, I talked about renewing flights, you will be on the first flight to go for a 1-month seminar in Ben Gurion University on whatever field you're in. I don't know if it's cyber technology, if it is IT, artificial intelligence, or whether it's on community medicine or green technology. I'm just giving Ben Gurion University as an idea because we have concrete scholarships and they have done a lot of effort for that. But I'm sure that many other universities throughout Israel, Hebrew University, Tel Aviv University, Technion, many universities will be happy to receive Cypriots. You know, it could be for 1 year, it could be for 1 month. If you just want to do a 1-week visit, I think that will be a huge step to what you're saying, because I'm sure that this kind of cross-Mediterranean contact will create great ideas for you as young people, much better ideas that I can do at my old age.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Before giving the floor to Andreas, I would like to mention that very soon we're going to send you the proposals of the EastMed Youth Ambassadors Group, how to further enhance the relations between young people of the region. And maybe just to give you a hint, one of the ideas that we really loved is to have some EastMed cruises. So like a boat with young people to start and stop in every port of EastMed countries, so people can go out, explore the city, meet other people, and then again get on board and go to the next port. So you are going to receive our proposals very soon, and we're going to be very happy to see some of them, to become reality. So now the floor is to Andreas.
Hello, Ambassador. Thank you very much for having us. My question is also related to young people. And I just wanted to ask how interested and how involved young people are in Israel in relation to diplomacy, I mean.
First of all, I like the idea about the cruise. I hope you will open it also for people above the age of 50, not only see you. Okay, more seriously, in Israel, and I'm not saying it only because I have 3 young people, but also Noga here, and we have a wonderful youth, really, like in Cyprus. Really, we have wonderful youth. They are very much interested. I think we're similar in this because we are small countries. And sometimes, you live in a country where you have 250 or 500 million people, you have the luxury of looking inwards and but when you live, well, Cyprus is smaller than us, but even Israel is only less than 9 million people. So it's not a huge country. And, when you live in our region, whether it's in Tel Aviv, in Haifa, or in Beersheba, and you live at this edge of the Middle East and looking outwards into the East Mediterranean, I can guarantee you that all the young people, first of all, they like to travel. They love to travel. This is a must. If you're a 20-year-old Israeli, you have to travel, and they go. Cyprus is not. They don't consider it travel. They call it like an afternoon, going out for a walk. This is small for them. They go all the way around the world to the most remote places. I'm sure you would like to go too. Hopefully the corona will be behind us, and many of them will be, you will be able to see them on the mounts of the Everest and I don't know where. So definitely they love to travel, they love to interact, and they are very much interested in diplomacy because Israel, like Cyprus, is a country which has many international relation issues. We have the Palestinian issue, we have the Arab-Israeli issue, we have, of course, Eastern Mediterranean, and naturally, this is something that every Israeli hears about from morning to evening in the newspapers, like you do too here. It's something that is very much present. So definitely they are, and I'm sure that if you'll reach out. I also, when I was in the ministry, from time to time, we had meetings with young Israelis which went to the United Nations to, they were like international United Nations or things like that. Remarkable people. Even, if you have one afternoon free, if you feel like it, I'm sure that we can organize somebody that you can talk to, and you'll be amazed by how much will come out of it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. I'm also very aware of the time. So if I'm allowed one last question and one last proposal, maybe, I will start from the proposal. It's about public diplomacy and digital diplomacy, which I just wanted to mention to my colleagues, if they don't follow the social media of the Embassy of Israel and also of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Israel, they should. I'm really amazed. I think it's one of the most great accounts of a foreign ministry, and that's, of course, my personal opinion. But I really love it, and how they deal also the promotion of the Abraham Accords, for example, the pictures that you showed us. And also there was another picture with a pilot. It was, I think, the first flight going from Israel to United Arab Emirates. So the pilot opened this small window in front of the cockpit, and then he put some of the flags of Israel, United Arab Emirates, and the United States of America. And I thought that was an incredible picture. And I really loved that it was used from the social media accounts. So my proposal is, if there is a way to get some kind of training for public diplomacy for young people. So this is an idea. And my question, in order to close this very nice evening today that we had the opportunity to speak with you, is shall we wait for more positive news from the region in relation to maybe some more agreements to be followed very soon?
On the last question, definitely, I think, because if you think about it, it's the logical way forward, for most countries which are looking around them in the region. They see, on the one hand, the challenges that I mentioned, but also they see all these opportunities. I'm sure that many would have done so already. Unfortunately, like every paradigm shift, some countries and some people also, when there is a change, you would be amazed that even years after people recognized that the world was round, people were still arguing about it. Even today, I hear some people who are saying so. Not many, but okay. So it takes a while, to sink in. But I think this new paradigm, certainly people understand it, but sometimes decision makers have to make that leap. This is about this. About your idea for training, I think it's a wonderful thing. I want to inform you also that we have a very good cooperation on this with the Cyprus Foreign Ministry, and I know that you are working with them. So in order to turn it into something a little more concrete, what I would suggest, if you could maybe write something to also maybe to the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Cyprus or to the Permanent Secretary, and to suggest to them that in their cooperation with Israel, they would include you. And so next time, and I hope we can already organize it quite soon, either online or physically, depending on the condition, when we do a training session, you will be included as part of the cooperation that we have with the Foreign Ministry of Cyprus. And I think in this way, to make it much quicker. Thank you very much also for my part. It was very interesting.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ambassador. You will very soon receive the proposals and ideas of the EastMed Youth Ambassadors, including the one for the EastMed cruises. And they have some more very important and I found them very, very nice ideas. So we'll be very happy to meet you again, to exchange views and ideas about further enhancing the cooperation. And thank you very much. It was a great honor to have you today with us.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Good evening.
Have a nice evening. Bye-bye.
Yes, bye-bye.
Bye.